I'd like to call the meeting of the House Professional Licensure Committee to order. Jamie, could you please take the roll?
Chairman Burns,
Present.
Representatives Burgos,
Here.
Gallagher,
Here.
Genst,
Here.
Guzman,
Here.
Kozarowski,
Designation.
Malagary,
Here.
Mursky. Oh, I'm
Design-
sorry, Markosik. Apologies.
Designation.
Mursky,
Designation.
Mullins,
Here.
Monroe,
Designation.
Steele,
Designation.
Venkat,
Here.
Williams, Chairman Metzger,
Here.
Representative Ecker,
Designation.
Gatos,
Here.
Clunk,
Here.
Kuzma,
Designation.
Lawrence,
Here.
Mako,
Here.
Marcel,
Designation.
Mahaffey,
Here.
Shuren,
Here.
Tomlinson.
Designation.
Today, we're going to consider Senate Bill 1310. Is there a motion to consider the bill?
1319.
Or 1319, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to consider the bill? Representative Mullins makes the motion, seconded by Representative Guzman. Carrie, can you explain the bill?
Senate Bill 1319 amends the architect's licensure law to define interior design services, establish certification for interior designers, and require continuing education for architects and certified interior designers.
On the bill, are there any discussions? The chair recognizes Chairman Metzger.
Oh, thank you, Chairman Burns. I appreciate it. I guess, first and foremost, I'm looking to see if there's anyone that would be able to answer questions on the bill. I guess the primary sponsor, I think, is busy, and I understand that. But is there anyone else that we know that can answer questions about it?
It depends. What are your questions?
I have a slew. Unfortunately, I guess that's the issue with this. We received it at 9 o'clock last night. It's a 35-page bill tying in two different professions. And I guess we've not had the opportunity to have a hearing on it. I would ask, with the indulgence of the chair, I know we do have an in-house interior designer that is available to testify today. Would we be able to do that, Chairman?
Yeah, we'll be able to do that to accommodate any questions that the members may have, since there may be questions we wouldn't be able to answer.
Oh, thank you. I would ask then if Malou McKenzie would be able to join us. Malou, if you could you just give us briefly, your history and experience on this issue? I know you're also a state legislator, but if you could give us just a little bit about your background with regard to the interior design space, and then secondly, if you could give us your opinion on this. We've heard, of course, from organizations that represent the profession generally, but was anxious to hear from someone in the field.
Oh, sorry. I'm State Representative Malou McKenzie. This is my third career. I was a teacher for about 20 years. Then for about 30 years, I was the owner of V.M. McKenzie Interior Design, LLC, a business I still own today. And I had a wonderful, life-changing career as an interior designer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for many years. And I was very successful, if I do say so myself. I've been published in some very prestigious interior design books, notably the Brunswick and Fee book from like 2005. But anyway, I'm here today to represent a vast number of interior designers that are probably not called upon to give their opinion in this field. Residential interior designers have traditionally been, what shall I say? They've been pursuing an artistic endeavor. I had no formal training as an interior designer. I had an art background, and I was able to step out of my world as a teacher because some very influential people came to my home and said, "Your house is so beautiful. Can you help me decorate a mansion I just bought?" So a new career was born, and it was a wonderful experience for me to be in that creative field. I helped many people with their homes, and I was able to earn a living without having any formal background or training. And traditionally, if you look at the history of interior designers, most of the famous ones have never had a design course in their life. I can name a bunch of famous designers like Nancy Lancaster, Sister Parrish, and I'm sure that you've all seen the ones on HGTV, and a lot of them have had no design training, but they are artistically talented, they know how to create a beautiful space, and they work hand in hand with architects and construction people to make sure that the project comes out perfectly. And that's what I did for all those 30 years. I worked hand in hand with, and not in competition with architects. I felt I stayed in my lane, they stayed in their lane, we worked together harmoniously, and there was no need for me to have formal training because it was a expression of talent. And so I don't think that an interior design license is essential because it's like telling an artist that you would have to have a degree in oil painting to be an artist. And we know that that isn't true. There are thousands of artists who have painted masterpieces who did not get a college degree in art. So I'm just here to speak on behalf, and I think that I've been fighting this idea ever since I got into the legislature. And I had my son fighting it prior to my coming here because he said, "Mom, what do you think about this?" And I represent a whole vast number of designers who are not even aware that this bill is going forth. And they would not be behind it because when I have spoken to them, I have a lot of designers in the Philadelphia area that I'm still friends with, and they are completely blindsided by this concept. Now, possibly a few interior designers that work in architecture firms, they're doing more CAD designs. They're doing more, more technical jobs, but they are not representative of the entire field of interior designers. So they want to find a niche, and I call it architecture light. They want to sort of go in and take over some role that traditionally architects have had. And there are certain other areas of interior design where it is very technical, like there are certified kitchen designers, and they have a separate little niche. And when I would design a kitchen, I would pick out the materials, but I would go to that kitchen designer and have them figure out the inches between the cabinets and how the refrigerator door is going to open. So I think there is a role for everyone to play, but I do not think that an interior designer needs to have a license. All it does is make someone go to school, take on student debt, and that's not necessarily going to benefit them in the future because maybe they can't even afford to go, but they could be a successful interior designer even without that degree. So I'm just telling you my little experience and what I've known, but for over 30 years, I had a remarkable career without any license or any formal training in interior design. Thank you.
Thank you, Malou, for your perspective. I'm not sure if the chair or anyone else has questions for you directly, but I do have some more questions just on the actual statutory language of the bill after Malou is done.
So Carrie has a few questions or concerns that are in the bill that she would like to talk about residential.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have questions or concerns, just for the information of the members. I just wanted to clarify that it's certification, not licensure, just as a matter of the wording of the bill, and that people do not have to become certified interior designers. It's an option if they want to pursue that. So certainly, to your point, my reading of the bill is not that it intends to force everyone down this path, but that if someone is receiving, say, the national certification, they would have this option to become a certified interior designer here, but not that it would preclude others from continuing to do decorating and the more residential services like you mentioned.
I just think that it blurs the line between what an interior designer is. I just don't think that it's helpful because, there are other avenues. There's the ASID, American Society of Interior Designs. And for years, that was a professional, very valuable organization to belong to. But that disintegrated over time, and it was opened up. If you could pay money to get that designation behind your name, they would let you into that organization. You didn't have to prove anything. So I think that this is just totally obscuring. I think that there are two very, very definite and uniquely qualified groups of people. The architects, they have very intense training, and they do get tested because they are doing things that could affect people's lives in their buildings. And the interior designers that I know, we come in and we work hand in hand with them. We want function, form, and beauty. And I just think this blurs the line between those two occupations. That's all.
Thank you. We've been joined by Representative Mirsky virtually and Representative Marcel, and we have another question from Representative Mullins.
Okay.
No, Mr. Chair, no question, just a comment on the bill, so I can hold off until questions are complete.
Representative Klunk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative McKenzie, for sharing your perspective. So the interior designers who I know are all women, and women with children, very much like yourself, who have this as a side business, or one of the women who I'm thinking of, she's a realtor, and she just loves helping people, once they buy their new home, give them ideas on, how to fix it up or how to decorate a particular space. So one of my concerns, and would love your perspective, since you are, were a mother raising your children while you did this, and those are the interior designers that I know. How would this bill, if we would go the certification route, impact individual women out there who are trying to start a business, who are trying to maybe break into, a business and work with an architectural firm? Do you think there could be a drawback in them getting business if they didn't have a so-called certificate? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I agree with that. I think that would be a hurdle for them, because I think that, in listing someone's qualifications, they might say, well, I'm a certified interior designer. And that might look better to some prospective client than if it's just a very talented, normal woman starting a business. And at the end of the day, the more talented person is not going to be decided by having a degree behind their name. As I say, I know on HGTV, I'm sure you've all seen Christina on the Coast, and Nate Berkus, who is a designer to the stars, he has a degree in philosophy. So many of us do not have formal design training. So I'm fearful that this will stop women in Pennsylvania. And it's not just women. I have tons of have men friends who are talented interior designers as well. They're incredibly talented, and they have no design degree either. So I just don't like to see anybody blocked from an opportunity to start a business and start a career that can support a family and support the, the inner desire of a person to become a small business owner. We know that small business is so vital to the Pennsylvania economy, and I think this will create a roadblock to having more small businesses in the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Just for a point of clarity for me, when you were doing your interior decorating, interior design, would this legislation have prevented you from operating?
It might have,
By
because,
choice or by law?
well, perception. I think if they throw this out and it goes into the public arena, and then someone would, a prospective client might come along and say, well, you don't have a certification, so you're not as qualified as the next person. I just think it is not necessary.
So you would have the choice to go get certified, the incentive to get certified, but you still
Yes.
could operate as is, as you always have.
I haven't read this exact bill, but the bill of last session that I was aware of in the House would have definitely been a problem for me. Because, again, even the person who wants to set out on that path could be discouraged. I just feel that it's not going to, and I say this goes against the entire history of interior design. So why are we starting this now? I just don't understand it. For hundreds of years, interior designers have separated themselves from architects by not having to have a formal degree. And I just don't understand the value of that going forward. I think you're really creating a problem where it does not need to come.
Again, just for clarity, the bill does not require a degree, but we're going to move on to other questions here. Representative Mahaffey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. So this, and this maybe goes to Nicole and Carrie on this situation with this bill. And I've been around for a while, so I understand that this was an ongoing discussion between the architects and the interior designers. And it mainly came down to the architect side saying who was going to stamp this, what are they going to do when we get into the commercial properties and we start moving structural walls and anything that has to do with structure. Is this certification justifying them my understanding is there's an agreement between the architects and the interior designers, which is great, because it's the first time that we've had an agreement between the two. Usually we're doing this where one of them sends a bill over and the other one's fighting it, and we have the two come together. And now we have a certification that the architects are, I'm assuming, okay with, right? For if there's a certification to do commercial design, that they can do it legally and stamp it and move forward with that particular venue. Is that correct? Is that what this bill does?
You're correct that the architects are in support. We received a letter of support from them this morning. So certainly that part is accurate. My understanding is that while it may have been part of previous discussions, things like moving structural walls is not included in the definition of interior design services. So that work must still be performed by an architect or an engineer. The interior designers, if they are certified and working in this context, would be limited to the items that are described in the interior design services definition.
Very good. Thank you.
Representative Mullins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this bill up, something that's been worked on for years and decades if my memory serves correctly. To Representative Mahaffey's point, this is something where at long last two outstanding organizations and professions have come together and have developed and negotiated a work product, a very good work product that is here before us. And I worry what could happen if we delay or don't act on this very resolution, on this very solution to all of those years' worth of work. Just to reiterate the points and particulars of this bill, this is a certification, a voluntary one, for commercial interior design. Residential would remain under the Home Improvement Consumer Protection Act, and nothing would prevent residential designers from being able to pursue the certification. And nothing's requiring commercial interior designers to pursue this certification. I know the member, our colleague who testified, cited her hesitancy and her concerns on the part of designers and why are we starting it now? But the American Society of Interior Design supports the bill. And I believe that this is a work product that will advance the professions, enable and to promote the professions and the incredible work that they do. So those are just some important things. She mentioned HGTV, and I come to Harrisburg, and I miss my family very much when I do, but I come here to get away from HGTV on TV. So I kind of started twitching there, but they do incredible work, and it gives us all expensive ideas. But I really do think this is a bill whose time has come, especially because of the hard work that's gone into it on behalf of the people who work so hard in these professions day in and day out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any more questions for Representative McKenzie, or are the following questions on the bill? Thank you for your
Could I say one thing in closing?
quickly.
Quickly. You're saying it's an agreement between interior designers and architects. I just want to point out it's an agreement between some interior designers and some, maybe the vast number of architects, but it does not represent all interior designers in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Representative Lawrence on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I have a point of order.
Proceed.
So my sister is a licensed architect in the state of Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth, and I want to know if that precludes me from voting on this legislation today.
You'll be able to vote. Yeah, you're a member of a class. You'll be able to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I on the bill?
Yes.
So I have some serious concerns with regard to the bill. It is the waning days of session here, and this is an issue that's been around for a little while, but this bill has come to us pretty quickly, at least to me. I look on page 3 at the definition of interior design services, and it says specifically that one of the things that an interior design service includes is drawings, and then those drawings are further described as layout. And that sounds to me an awful lot like what an architect does. I'm not aware that those terms are further defined elsewhere in this legislation or under the law as it stands today. Is there anyone who might be able to provide me with additional information on that?
I'm happy to follow up with you, Representative. I can't speak, obviously, for the maker of the bill, but as it's been described to us as staff, is that layout may refer to things like the placement of cubicles in a large office or other movable, non-structural items that would need to be placed and planned throughout the space.
So if an architect lays out a drawing, a layout that moves a wall, and subsequently, based off of the architect's drawing of that layout, that architect has to stamp that drawing, if subsequently the structure collapses and someone is injured because the architect moved a wall that shouldn't have been moved, that, as I understand it, is liability faced by the architect. My question is what is the situation contemplated for the interior designer? To use the example that was just mentioned previously, if an interior designer is laying out cubicles and those cubicles then later are improperly laid out and for whatever reason do not work out well and somebody is injured, who is responsible then? Is there language in the bill that holds the interior designer to account? Is there certification on the line?
I don't want to speculate and give you incorrect legal interpretation, so I will be happy to follow up with you.
I mean, I don't see it. I would also say this. I'm looking at what it takes to become an interior designer under the legislation. And first of all, it's voluntary, so it seems as if I can call myself an interior designer with no prerequisite whatsoever. But if I want to obtain the certification, then I have to have several years of college and practice. So that seems very vague to me. Now, I can only speak for my sister, who I watched suffer, I'll use that term, she probably wouldn't, through 5 years of architecture school. My understanding is now it's 7. Then 5 to 10 years of internship. Then she had to sit for a battery of 7 exams. She was the first one out of her graduating class of college to get her architecture license in her group of friends, and I believe it was at age 30. So that's a long time to ask somebody. I mean, I'm sure I don't want to speak about my sister in particular, but I'm just talking about folks going into the profession of architecture who have graduated with significant debt and then have to work for peanuts for years as drafters or whatever it might be as they're interning, and then sit for a battery of exams that my understanding is very challenging just to get the certification so that they can practice in a field that, frankly, the engineers can do a lot of what the architects can do already. Now we have a bill coming in here at the last minute that says an interior designer who has far less training can do drawings of layouts. That sounds a lot to me like what an architect does. And I'm not saying I could never get there on this bill, but given that, I mean, the questions I've asked I don't think are unreasonable. I think that liability and loss of certification and such are kind of basic considerations. Let me ask this question. Well, I'll just leave it at that. The bottom line is that I feel like the bill has been rushed. I have serious concerns about it, and I think it's unfair, frankly, to folks who have played by the rules for many years and are practicing architects who have spent maybe 15 years to get that certification, that license with the Commonwealth, that then somebody can come in with much less training, much less work, and do largely the same job. That provides me with some concern and some hesitancy. So at this time, I will be a no on the legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We've been joined by Representatives Monroe and Burgos. We have another question for Representative Michelle.
I would say it's more of a comment, but I wanted to add that as someone who is new to the House and is new to this committee, I think that it means a lot when groups come together to work on trying to solve a licensure issue. And so I was just going to mention that, obviously I work very closely with Senator Ferry because my district is in his, but the fact that the architects and interior designers worked on this together, I think is a really nice model And I just appreciate the work that they and the time that they spent trying to solve this issue. I believe this bill was passed unanimously in the Senate, but I don't know. Thank you for confirming that. So I just wanted to thank people for putting the time in to try to work together and get a solid solution for everyone. And so I will be supporting the bill today. Thank you.
Representative Shuren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment, and thank you, Representative McKenzie, for your input. Trying to play catch-up on this one. It sounds like this is a really good issue to have had a hearing on. My apologies if one took place before I joined the State House. But in reaching out and trying to get opinions, certainly I have firsthand knowledge of interior designers in my district that stand against becoming certified. I do recognize the talent portion of being an interior designer, and I think some people have the knack. And as we promote people to pursue their dreams, pursue their talents, it seems like we should be able to reward people who have a skill set that they don't need an education for. And I, too, am concerned about rushing this through without really getting to hear from other people who might not be a part of the organizations that would like this to go through. So with that, I will have to vote no. Thank you.
Chairman Metzger.
Thank you, Chairman Burns. I'm very appreciative of the hard work of the good senator from Bucks, and obviously some of our own members have worked on this bill. But I still have some procedural questions regarding the bill itself that we have not been able to tease out through hearings because of the quick movement of the bill. You know, just last night we learned that we were going to run it today. So I'm maybe putting this out here to anyone who would want to answer in the future. I'm pretty sure we're not going to get any answers today. But I know Representative Mullins earlier raised the issue of that this only applies to commercial interior design projects. I'm trying to find in the bill where that is, and I don't see that anywhere. If anyone can direct me to that, I definitely am just a farmer from Somerset County, but I can't find it in there.
Mr. Chairman, I am not an attorney, but I did ask, as you are, so I think you're humbling yourself by saying you're just a farmer, but I did ask the same question of the stakeholders, and I would be happy to share their response with you.
Thank you. So I guess the next, just practical question I have is, so that there are certifications for architects are generally $40 for the initial fee, $100 for renewal. There are likely less interior designers in the Commonwealth than there are architects. So does that mean that the fee is going to be higher for interior designers to cover the certification process and costs? That's just a question that I didn't know if anyone's addressed that. I don't know the answer to that. Last is that I understand that there is continuing education, and the continuing education requirements are the exact same for architects versus interior designers, and I think everybody here today seems to indicate that the architectural license is far more complex and has a greater danger to it. So that being said, that seems out of line, but secondly, I'm curious about what is the recurring cost of CEs for those particular fields. I don't know what that costs. I know what a continuing legal education requirement costs, but I don't know the answer to that. And then lastly, I am perplexed. There's what we commonly call as title protection for practice protection out there, and I was wondering if the architects currently have that. Is that something the architects enjoy at this point? That practice protection area?
I believe a licensed architect must meet all of the qualifications for licensure to call themselves a licensed architect, if that's your question.
Why, so I guess why would there be need to add language on page 11 that the individual may not practice architecture or use the word architect without having the issued license by the board? That perplexed me. And why would that be necessary now, if it already exists?
I can't speak 100% for the stakeholders, but I would think that this is probably to provide extreme clarity that in certifying a new profession under the architecture licensure law, that they are not permitted to practice architecture, but not saying that any architect, like not saying that they didn't already have title protection as well.
Yeah, I love extreme clarity, and I guess that's why I would go back to the differential between commercial and residential licensure on the interior design side, then that we could have that clear clarity, to be redundant, pun intended, in the bill itself. So with that being said, I obviously think this issue isn't right because we didn't have the opportunity to vet it in this committee. I think the committee process is crucial, and I think the members of this committee are valuable. And just the questions today, I think that you can see that it's not quite ripe. And so I would, I plan to be a no vote on it.
You can be dismissed, Rep. McKenzie.
off your microphone, Rep. McKenzie? Oh, sorry. There you go. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the bill?
Oh, Representative Klunk.
Representative Klunk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, this is my first time on this committee. I don't recall there being a hearing on this. I do believe that there are a whole host of questions that we still have. This bill clearly is not ready to move forward today. While I do agree with some of the updates for the licensed architects that are in here, I have heard from my architects, and I do believe we need to have that discussion. The certification of the interior designers part, I just have so many questions when I look through this bill, and I see that they have 24 hours of continuing legal education over 2 years. That's 12 every year. As an attorney, I'm required to have 12 hours as an attorney, not an interior designer. So, and in talking with, Representative McKenzie here and knowing some of my interior designers at home who are those, stay-at-home moms who have a side business, who just want to make a little bit of extra money for their family. And I know that this is based on this, and again, I do have questions of whether or not this is really going to be required, because I do believe that there will be people who will be pushed out of the market because they're not getting the license. They will lose work, and that could hurt our small local businesses that contribute to our local economies and our neighbors. In looking at the actual part of the bill, when you look at what the licensure requirements are, it is substantial for this, folks. You have to have a national certification exam. You have to take that. You also have to have a professional degree in interior design or architecture from an accredited school. Okay, so you have to take an exam. You have to have the degree in interior design or architecture. You can't just have a degree in art or art history or I don't know what. Representative McKenzie gave the example of the philosophy major who's now on HGTV, so clearly successful. And then you also have to have at least 2 years of practical experience under the direct supervision of a nationally certified interior designer or architect. So you have to have 2 years. If you live in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, our rural parts of Pennsylvania, I don't know where, and I'm sorry Representative McKenzie isn't up here to answer this question now that I'm thinking of it, where are you going to find that experience to work under somebody for 2 years? If you are that man or woman who has their side business, who is just trying to provide for their family, get a little bit of extra money so that you can take your kids on vacation, so that you can put your kids through ballet and sports, Where are you going to find 2 years of your life to be able to study under the tutelage of and have direct supervision by a nationally certified interior designer or architect? How's that going to be possible for people? I think about my friends who do this, and that would preclude them. They wouldn't be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to do it. And then they couldn't get the certification, and then they're going to not be able to get business because certain firms and certain organizations will push them out of the market, and then they won't be able to actually provide for their families. That, to me, really worries me. I do believe that there needs to be, some oversight in this, especially when you get to the level of the design and the layout. Okay, we can have that discussion. But when you go back to the beginning of the bill, on page 3, again, Representative Lawrence talked about this, what interior design services actually are. A lot of this includes what furnishings you pick out, what fixtures you use. Well, you use, the square light opposed to the round light. You pick out, this brown molding versus, a white molding. That, to me, doesn't mean that you need a degree, pass an exam, and 2 years under the tutelage of some person who has been nationally recognized. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm going to be a no for those reasons. This bill is not baked, and we can have a discussion about the architects and that additional requirement for continuing education. I wish that was just the bill because I could vote yes, but I'm going to have to be a no, folks. Thanks.
Thank you. Jamie, will you please call the roll on the bill?
Chairman Burns,
Yes.
Representatives Burgos, Gallagher,
Yes.
Ginst. No. Guzman,
Yes.
Kozarowski,
Designation, yes.
Malagari,
Yes.
Markosik,
Designation, yes.
Mirsky,
Designation, yes.
Mullins,
Designation, yes.
Monroe,
Yes.
Steele,
Designation, yes.
Venkit,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Chairman Metzger,
No.
Representatives Ecker,
Designation, no.
Gatos,
Yes.
Klunk,
No.
Kuzma,
Designation, no.
Lawrence,
Designation, no.
Mako,
No.
Marcel,
Designation, yes.
Mahaffey,
Yes.
Shuren,
No.
Tomlinson,
Designation, yes.
Receiving the majority votes on the committee, Senate Bill 1319 is reported from the House Professional Licensure Committee. This will be the last committee meeting we'll probably have for the session, but I wanted to thank the members for working diligently. There's a lot of things we did on this committee that we all can be proud of, and I want to thank everybody for that. I'd like to thank my friendship with Carl Metzger. We've known each other for a long time, and we work well together. And this is part of the process, and I want to thank him for being a good friend throughout this committee. This meeting's adjourned.